Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the next lesson of the competitive programming series. Today, we're going to be teaching you guys loops and how you can use loops in competitive programming. So to do this, we're just going to be doing this question right here called Silent Auction, and it is the CCC 2021 J2 question, meaning that it is the second question from the junior contest. And if you didn't know, last time we did the Junior 1 question. However, what you will quickly realize is that the higher the question is, the harder it gets. So J2 will be harder than J1. So if you ever feel like I'm going too fast or this is something that's a bit too hard for you, feel free to send us an email as usual, because this stuff might be a bit difficult to people who are just getting started with programming. All right, so you can read the question on the screen here, but basically what it's telling us to do is that the first line is going to be an input where it's a number, and that number is going to be the amount of people in this auction, meaning that it's not always just going to be one person or two persons or three people. It's going to be whatever number the computer wants it to be, meaning, you know, how last time with the dog treats homework, you only needed to ask the input manually 3 different times. However, this time you can't do it manually because you don't know how many times they're going to ask how many people are in the auction. So whenever you run into this type of problem where you don't know how many times you're going to ask the input, you have to use some sort of loop that is going to continuously ask something and continuously do something for n amount of times, however many times they want to ask. And you could even see here for, you know, there's 3 times that it happens and they do it 3 times. Each person has a name and a number, which is the amount of money they're putting up. And this repeats itself 3 times. It's the exact same logic. We're going to want to repeat it however many times the first number is. So right off the bat, we want to first get our input as usual. So we use the input function, and that's the first line of input. And then you want to convert that into an integer, just like this, because we are going to be using that as a number as opposed to just a string, which is just going to be text. Once you have that number, you want to repeat that number, whatever that number is. So if it's 3, you want to repeat it 3 times. And to do this, you use a loop like this. It's almost similar to an if-else statement. You do for I in range of that number, which is n, and then you put this, and then boom. So what this is doing is, over here you're going to have code inside of this loop here, and what it's saying is it's going to repeat whatever code you have inside of this loop, which is now indented. It's going to repeat that whatever n is. So if n is 3, it's going to repeat this code 3 different times. So you should be able to make this logic now that, well, if whatever code is over here, it's going to have to ask for the name, it's going to have to ask for the number as well, because it does that 3 times. So there's 6 lines of input in total. And if there's 2 each single time and there's 3 times, that's how we got 6. So what you want to do is you want to create some sort of variable to store the person's name and their bid. So I'm going to just make name, and that's going to be input. Obviously, we won't convert this into an integer because it's a name. And then bid, we do want to be an integer, so we can just put it like this. Great. So now you might be wondering, well, how exactly do we find the largest bid? Because that's what you have to do. You have to compare the bid as they go along. And one of the hints here is that even if there's a tie, whoever places it first wins the auction. So just with that type of knowledge, you can see how you're going to need to have some sort of code in your loop that is constantly tracking what is the highest bid that has ever been entered. You want to find out and you want to iterate. It's a process called iteration, and it iterates n amount of times. So what it does is you're going to want to go through every person's name, every person's bid, and you're going to want to keep track of what was the highest bid you have seen so far, and always store it in a new variable that tracks the highest bid. So it'll be like this. So if the person's bid, whatever they inputted currently, is greater than whatever the highest bid was, then what you want to do is make the winner of the auction the name of who you inputted. So at the start, we have Ahmed, and there is no highest bid, so let's just pretend that the highest bid starts off as 0 to begin with, because you start off with no highest bid for the first person. So if the person bids over $0, well, they're automatically the winner to begin with. So if their bid 300 is greater than 0, I'm going to make the winner of this Ahmed. So I'm setting a new variable called winner, and I'm sending it to the name which they inputted, which is Ahmed. But he's not exactly the winner, because right after that we have Suzanne, who gave 500. Well, that's no problem, because it's going to repeat itself again. We're going to get the name is going to be Susan now. So the name is no longer Ahmed, it gets reset to Susan. And then the bid is no longer 300, it's going to get reset to 500. So when you have that in mind, now you have the current bid, which is 500, but the highest bid is still 0. We need to set the highest bid to 300, because that's what we found out Ahmed was the highest bid last time. So that's another code that we have to put in this if else statement too, is we set the highest bid to whatever that person's current bid is, meaning it's no longer 0. If Ahmed was the highest bid now that we've seen is 300. So going back to Susan, we get Susan's information. Susan has a bid of 500, and that is greater than 300. That was the previous highest bid. So if it is greater than that, that's perfect. We can forget about Ahmed. His stuff is useless now. So we set the highest bid to 500, because the current bid right now is 500 as well. And now the new winner that we're going to have is Susan, so she gets stored in that variable. Then it repeats again for the third time for Ivona. Ivona, we get her information like this. Ivona's current bid, which is stored in this variable, is 450. The highest bid that we've seen before was from Suzanne, who has 500, so it doesn't enter this loop, and it just exits and it goes back. And then once it realizes, oh, we've already repeated the loop, we're out of the loop, and we're into whatever code is put over here. And all we have to do in the output is output whatever the winner's name was. And in this case, it's going to be, or not Suzanne, it's going to be the winner, whoever the winner was when you found out whatever the highest bid number was. All right, so we use the same process. We run the module, and we can literally input all of these lines of code like this. We can do 3, Ahmed, 300, Suzanne, 500, Ivona, 450, and we get the correct output. And a faster way to do this is, or sorry, not check module, run module. A faster way to do this is to literally, you can just copy and paste everything. So you can just copy and paste all of that like this, and paste it like that, and I get Ijeoma, which is the correct output. So once again, once you have your code, you can submit the solution, copy and paste. Everything seems to be working, and submit. You get everything correct, and it's just it's such a satisfying feeling when you get everything correct. Okay, so after some thorough searching, we couldn't really find some good junior questions involving for loops that would be easy for you guys to complete, so we decided to create our own. If you feel like the stuff is too easy, feel free by all means to do some junior questions, even some senior questions, if you guys feel like you're really experienced. But we, for the homework, are just going to stick with this question that is shown here. And your goal is to output all of the even numbers up to n. And n is just going to be some random input that the computer is going to give you. So if the computer says 10, then you're going to have to output 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 10 as well. If it says 15, you do 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, not 15, because 15 is an odd number. Now this might seem a bit confusing. Well, it's not, because you might have to Google how do you find out if a number is even or odd in Python. So this is going to be the challenge for you guys, because we're not going to explicitly tell you, but that's one of the goals as a programmer, is you got to use, what your resources are on the internet. So see if you can find out a way to tell if a number is even or odd, because you're obviously going to be using some sort of for loop. And then inside of that for loop, you're going to want to have some sort of if statement that checks to see if it is a even number. And the condition for that statement might be a bit confusing, but we'll give you a hint. What do all even numbers have in common? Well, when they're divided by 2, they have a remainder of 0. Maybe there's a function or an operator in Python that tells you the remainder. I don't know. That's up to you guys. And that's basically homework for you guys. So for the homework, all you have to do is just send a picture, submit a picture, a PNG file or a JPEG file of your code. Obviously, there's nothing to submit on Dmodge this time, so just send us the code directly and we already have the answer to the solution. One more thing to add is this output is actually technically incorrect. It will actually be, it could be just outputted like this as well in a vertical row. So, all right, guys. So we hope you enjoyed the lesson, and we hope you find this homework set a bit challenging, but hopefully you guys don't get stuck on it too badly. All right, bye everyone.